All right, we are here with Barry Zito, legend.
The lefty.
He loves a good lefty. He obviously, as you know, Dallas has no bias towards the A's in their history whatsoever.
Well, what you got to understand right now here is this is a culmination of a lot of things for me.
Yeah.
What you listeners need to know and understand is not very often does somebody who, one that I looked up to, that really had kind of paved the way for a kid like me within the organization that I started out with. If you were left-handed and you put on the green and gold, there were two names that you heard. There were two names that you got hit over the head with. There were two names that were the benchmark for you as a left-hander. Like, are you Barry Zito? Have you heard of a curveball? Are you Mark Mulder? Can you sink the baseball? If you can't do either one of those, get the fuck out of my face, lefty. You're wasting my time. Yeah. So you had to figure out where in the pantheon of dominant left-handed pitchers you were going to fit in. So it's really cool for me, Z, to sit down with you at this point in time in our lives where we're at right now.
Yeah.
So far removed from what that emotion for me was, what that meeting for me was like the very first time. So really cool to have you on, my friend.
That's wonderful, man. Well, Dallas, it's a pleasure, man. You are inspirational and really good at what you do right now, by the way.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, he's going to be talking about that for the next 6 months. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
It's great to hang. Yeah, Jared. Great to hang, buddy.
The book is called Curveball. You were known for the curveball. So tell me, I'm curious about the first time you snapped off a curveball that you were like, oh shit, like this is a big time out pitch.
Yeah, the curveball I started throwing when I was 7 and looked.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't blow out, but I looked in this book called The Art of Pitching by Tom Seaver when I was 7. My father put that book in front of me, and they had pictures of curveball grips, and I started, I think I looked at it wrong because the picture was a right-handed curveball.
Yeah.
And so I think I threw the curveball upside down my whole career. Yeah, I threw it upside down. I never met anyone with the same grip as me, but I think I just looked at the picture wrong.
That's crazy. So I've been meaning to ask you this question for a long time. Dallas, I don't know if you know where I'm going with this. The movie Moneyball.
No.
If I had your career and your life, and then I was like, wow, they made a movie about the team that I was on, and it focused on one of the best seasons that I ever had. I won the Cy Young that year. I can't wait to go see it with my friends and family. They don't even mention your name in the script. Like, there's no one. Like, if you go to IMDb, there's no one who's
a fucking travesty.
There's no one who's playing Barry Zito in the background. They don't even, like, we just looked at it this morning. We looked up the script. We did, like, Control F. We searched it. There's not even a mention of the name Barry. There's no mention of the name Zito. Did you see that movie and you were like, wait, it's over? Where was the part where I won the Cy Young Award? Because I'm pretty sure that Scott Hatterberg didn't lead this team to complete victory.
Where's the part where the best three-headed monster to ever grace a fucking mound just where was that?
Yeah.
Was that in the fucking entering credits? What happened?
No, it's funny. I mean, listen, that was a great story, right? And you want to make the movie universal, appeal to everybody, not just baseball fans.
Yeah.
The original movie, written by Steven Soderbergh, I believe, directed by, got scrapped a few weeks before it was going to start shooting.
Huh.
Me, Mulder, and Huddy were going to play ourselves the All-Star break of that movie. We were going to have a cameo, obviously, but that was going to be a little more true to the tale, but I don't think it was going to be a universally appealing film. I think it was just going to be loved by baseball fans, so they rewrote the whole deal. Aaron Sorkin wrote it, right? Few Good Men. So that's how it went, man.
That's crazy. I would have been
we're just gonna need
furious.
three, if you could, to kind of understand. We've done some knifing around here. We've actually cut out that. Actually, we're not going to mention either one of you at all. I hope you're okay.
People will love this because you are not in it.
Yeah, like Miguel Tejada won the MVP that year, and
That's
they
right.
just had some dude walking around wearing like a number 4 jersey. They didn't even like mention Miguel Tejada. Like it was just like, okay, we have the MVP and the Cy Young. We'll just make it about how Scott Hatterberg led this team to the promised land. They had a great year.
There was one shot when they were having the Billy Bean was holding a meeting in the clubhouse, which obviously we know general managers don't hold meetings in clubhouses,
Right.
but and so there was one shot though, and it was all the players, and there was a guy that had high socks and like a 75 jersey draped over his leg and highlighted tips, you know? And so I'm like, there it is. I paused it with my wife. That's me.
That's crazy. So
I
do
love it.
you,
Hey,
I got to know,
what?
like you, Hudson, Mulder, tell me that there's like a group chat. Like, do you guys have like a running text message thread?
We need to get on a group meet, don't we?
You really do.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you guys, I mean, obviously as individuals, you are outstanding, but you'll always be linked together. And like every baseball fan has to know, it's like, okay, there's definitely got to be like a group chat where you guys keep in touch with each other. You
know what's funny? And I mean, this is why baseball's cool. It's good, right? We come together with all walks of life, people from all different places all over the world now. Huddy was just the bulldog guy from the South that, you know, could hit almost better than he could pitch. You know, Mulder, we used to call him Cool Daddy O, right? 6'5", good looking, literally could do anything he wanted, you know, get drafted in whatever sport, you know, and I was kind of the eccentric California surfer kid or whatever. So we came together as three completely different personalities, but, you know, we had that dynamic on the field for whatever reason. But, you know, as a friend thing, actually, I was a little closer to Huddy as I played, and I got closer to Mulder later. Yeah. And I have a great relationship with both those guys now.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are. I mean, you're all legends, but I mean, like that's some company. I can't remember what do you think Dallas is a more comparable like big three? Like it could be like Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz. Like that's
that. I think that was the original.
That would be it. And again, I just like I really, and this is stuff that kind of that I'm sure Z doesn't. I'm sure he's aware of and understands, but to the degree of which I lived and felt is. He really did set the bar. There really was these conversations when you are drafted. Here's the protocol. Here's what your ultimate end game is. And it was those two dudes, Mulder and Z. I mean, for Christ's sake, I'll tell you right now, Ted Mart still has a pair of number 75 Pumas hanging around in Papago Park to this fucking day. That's the kind of Barry Zito's shoes are still on some kids running around the Arizona Fire League right now. That's the kind of impact
that's funny.
Zito and Mulder had. Dude, I got to ask you because obviously you have chapter 2, phase 2, whichever title you want to throw on to life for you right now. You have definitely made a transition away from the baseball field and into that chapter or phase 2. How important is it to you, and how important do you think it is for athletes to be able to search and find an identity that they feel doesn't define them in the view of society, in the view of even some of their colleagues? How important is it to branch away and discover who you are outside of what may define you to the public?
It's a great question, Dallas. You know, a lot of this book talks about the things that we can't talk about when we're playing baseball, right? Because we give the kind of standard nuclear loose post-game interview, right? You know, just want to help the team. But the reality is we're all kind of broken, flawed people, man. We're all trying our best and really screwing up more than we're probably doing right. We get put on these platforms, right? Especially those of us who can make it to these high places. And it's so easy to identify with what you do. And for me, I had a father that, you know, I interpreted he only loved me or approved of me when I was actually pitching and throwing the ball well, even from the age of 10 or 11. So that, you know, obsession with approval got displaced onto thousands of people in the Bay Area that were at the games. And now I'm using the thing that I'm good at, baseball, to actually bring me approval and validation and, you know, to calm my insecurity. And so that's for me when everything got flipped on its head. Because I identified, like you said, Dallas, this is what I am. It's not what I do. And I remember being a rookie in the Oakland clubhouse, hearing a veteran say to a media person, you know, baseball is just what I do. It's not who I am. And I remember shaking my head to myself thinking, dude, this guy is not all in. He's not focused. Because I didn't have a foundation of who am I actually outside of this game. I didn't know. And so, you know, having that lack of foundation is what led to my demise ultimately when I signed this huge contract in San Francisco. Okay, baseball is what I do. I'm $126 million man. Here we go. Now go ahead and justify it with a CG shutout every 5 days. You know, and my whole world crumbled. And then as a result, you know, I found an identity. For me, it was in God. And, you know, I found an identity of, oh, this is actually more important than baseball? That's crazy. That was a foreign concept to me. And I do see these guys, and I know you guys have seen these guys who can take baseball or leave it. Take pro sports or leave it. I'm just going out there doing my best. Eric Chavez was a guy like that. I think Buster Posey's a guy like that. And because of that abandon that they can have, the game kind of goes pretty well for them. Because they're not holding on for dear life for that validation every day.
Right. How big of a difference was it for you in year one of the contract? Like, could you feel it like weighing on you? Was it something that you thought about like as you were preparing for each start, or was it kind of just like, all right, I signed on the dotted line. It is what it is. It's just another day.
No, come on. I mean, that I learned how to approach it like that when I found something more important than baseball.
Yeah.
And that's why 2012 with, pitching in the World Series, all that went well for me because I actually didn't need it anymore. And when I was desperate for it, 2007, I mean, dude, I was running around Hollywood trying to find, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, so to speak, chasing down famous chicks and trying to, buying fast cars. And I mean, Dallas, you and Wilson are boys, dude. We were running around doing our thing. And I destroyed a lot of relationships, destroyed a relationship with Brian because I was so in my ego of what can this do for me. So the contract was really, I felt I deserved it for my hard work. It was just the next step in my rock star life, right? Instead of being grateful for any of it. So then, I mean, I got my butt torn in about 1,000 pieces and, realized, oh, actually, I can't take credit for that.
Right.
I don't know what I can take credit for now. I don't even know why I was good in the big leagues. I watch this game on TV. I'm like, dude, these guys are so good. I don't know how I got anybody out.
Like, do you think the guys that talk about the contracts that they've gotten and how it hasn't changed them at all? Like, I don't think about the money. Like, do you think that that's just all lip service?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It has to affect you in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, dude, I was saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But underneath, I was terrified. I was terrified. And I remember when I signed that deal in San Francisco, I had my press conference. Just got off the stage, with the owners and Brian Sabian, the general manager, who put together the whole Yankees, dominating dynasty team in the 90s. He comes up to me and says, you might as well tattoo that effing number on your forehead. And, dude, I didn't know what he meant, but he was right. Yeah. That 126 became the definition of me until I found a real definition of me.
Right. Anytime you go out there and it's like 5 1/3, 5 earned runs, like 126 for that. Yeah.
Oh, and I actually got into this headspace where if I was not throwing 7 scoreless, then I was actually failing. And life became so lopsided, dude. I needed to throw like a scoreless outing and get a win just to break even.
Yeah.
And anything short of that was a failure. I mean, that's lopsided.
Did you have was there anybody in the clubhouse or anybody in your baseball circle, because it's easy for folks outside of the baseball circle to take stock of maybe where their friend Barry is or where their family relative Barry is in their life. Was there anybody in the baseball world that was able to sort of help Barry step back and take stock of where you were at and kind of lead you to the watering hole of discovering who you are outside of the two-seamer, the curveball?
No, for me, Matt Cain was a guy that I would confide in, and Matt's just a really genuine, a beautiful guy, man. And I always felt that Matt was not really defined by the game, and that was rare, right? So I was always kind of going, Matt, you just seem like you don't care that much, which is a good thing, as we know. Yeah, and so talking to Matt day in, day out, he was kind of the only one I would really share even the inklings of my misery with. But then 2010 came, I'm left off the roster, right? The rest of the guys are all pitching, going to win a World Series, and I'm sitting there in the dugout watching, just a $18 million a year cheerleader. And Matt didn't give up a run in the postseason. So now I'm mad at Matt, like under my breath, right? I'm sitting there jealous of Matt. I'm jealous of Brian. Rooting against the team, hoping they just lose so I can go home and get out of this miserable situation. So, these things do a lot of wrongs to the human psyche, man. When you start comparing yourselves to everybody else and what do they have that I don't? This is when the human ego can just really rock our world, man.
Did anybody call you on that? Like, could they sense like the negative energy during 2010 where they were just like, come on, like we need you here?
No, I was a master of disguise. I was trying to laugh and yuck it up with the guys, and I didn't want to be a heavy presence at all. Sure. I just kind of stayed out of everyone's way. Yep. I didn't have any adrenaline surge. I'm sitting there just in my own misery every day, showing up with sunglasses and headphones, hoping no one will notice me.
And I don't think, and Jared, I'll say this, man, I don't think folks really understand how difficult that can be. And Mulder and I have talked about this, where when you are, in our mind, mortally wounded, and you know that you just physically cannot do, you're showing up to the yard, you're trying to go through the exercises, you're trying to go through the rehab, but you know, my arm just, it hurt this morning, it hurts today, it hurts right fucking now. There is no master of disguise in that moment. You are a heavy presence, and and in Oakland, in that clubhouse, in that training room, and in that dugout, there's nowhere to hide. You are either there and you're fucking it up for somebody else, or you're there and you're helping somebody out. That's how I looked at that clubhouse. There was really nowhere to sort of hide or blend in. So that is a hell of a mind space to be in. That's a hell of a mind space to exist in. I want to know, Z, going home and having those conversations with yourself at night, having those conversations with folks around you, what were some of the things that maybe led you to start peeling back the layers of your own onion and thinking, you know what, if I can start to share some of this stuff with people, maybe I can find some peace, maybe I can find some settling in myself?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my misery I felt like was in vain until I could try to help someone else with it. And I really feel like that's what life's about now, is service. I mean, so this book, writing this book, and the subtitle of the book is, finding true fulfillment after chasing fortune and fame, right? So like so many of us, we grow up, I'm going to live my dream. And, if I make it, I'm just going to fill that hole up in my heart. I'm going to have money and fame and attention. And, whatever that version is for each of us, that version of success, where we feel like right there beyond the horizon, if I get there, that's when I'm going to feel happy, fulfilled, satiated, at peace, contentment, whatever. That's not true. This book is kind of just like a little shooting a flare of a warning. Like those are lies. As we all know, any success you have, you just want the next one just as bad. So for me, explaining the fact that this is what I thought was going to fill me up, I still had a big gaping hole in my heart. And now it's time to do the real work. And the real work starts when you say, I can't do it alone. And that's not something I ever admitted growing up. My willpower, I grew up in this and I get into this in the book, but I grew up in this kind of far out Eastern New Age religion, which was my willpower can create any reality that I need, because we see a lot of this today. If I can believe it and achieve it, my mind can conceive it. That's not true for everything, dude. Like how many of us wanted something and we focused on it? It didn't show up. Mm-hmm. We're not the ultimate end all be all. Mm-hmm. See, but I thought at some point in my career when I was dominating, I thought I was God. I mean, I literally thought I was controlling those hitters 60 feet away. Mm-hmm. And we all feel like that in those zone experiences. But the reality is there's a lot more stuff going on, and I'm not really that big of a part of it as I thought. Mm. So when I finally admitted I can't do it alone, that's when everything changed in my life.
What was the breaking point for you?
The breaking point was coming home after 2010. My team just won the World Series. I come back, all my friends are, no one's coming around in Hollywood. I'm sitting up there in that mansion alone. Mm-hmm. No one wants to talk to me. I'm like the redhead stepchild of the baseball, biggest bust contract ever. So, I basically just had to do some thinking. I went to a 12-step meeting actually for codependency. I was so obsessed with other people's opinions of me and getting approval that I had to go into a 12-step. And so, the second step was, came to realize there's a power greater than me that can restore my sanity. I was like, okay, this is the first time I will say there's a power greater than Barry Zito, because I was not ever willing to say that. Mm-hmm.
Have you seen my fucking 12-6 hammer? Fuck you.
That's what I mean. And that's the headspace. So, man, 6-8 months later, man, I said, God, I'm living for you now, man. I'm sick of living for myself. This is wearing my ass out.
How many other guys in the league right now do you think could benefit from something like that, where they are obsessed with the outside approval? Oh, they need it.
Almost everyone. Like I said, there are those guys that have a foundation that you said, hey, man, if baseball was gone tomorrow, you think you'd be all right? How many of us could say, okay, right? There's so few that would be like, yeah, man, baseball's not who I am. But there's so few. And here's the thing I'm obsessed with now. Can you actually make it to high places without that obsession and that identity, being so attached to what you do? Can you actually have big success on a big stage without being like, this is pumping through my veins. My soul was meant to do this, right? And my idea, based on my 2012, having this great game in St. Louis and winning the World Series, I did not go into those games confident that I was going to win. That was for me, that was a complete mind screw.
Yeah.
I went in there going, you know what? If I'm going to give up 10 runs, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I have to be okay with that so I can go be free on that mound and just throw the ball the way I want.
All right.
And boom, wouldn't you know it, Barry, oh my gosh, do you feel redeemed? The whole city, I'm like, man, I don't care about being redeemed. That's why I actually feel like I got redeemed, because I stopped caring about being redeemed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like your ERA was like a 1.6 something in the postseason in 2012, and I mean, you're just going into all those starts, high pressure, all this, and you're just like, whatever happens, happens.
Dude, the whatever happens, that is, for me, that's the magic. Yeah. Because if you're anything in life, if you're willing to let go and say, you know what, if this gets taken away tomorrow, I'm talking about your wife and children too. Yeah. Like I'm talking about all of it. Dude, that's when life gets really fun, because you are not desperately attached to any of it. And now all of it's icing,
I think
where have you been able to find that kind of freedom in what you're doing now? Because obviously you've been balls deep in the music scene for a hot minute. That is something that is probably, I guess for the people who know about you, the people who know you, that is something that I would think more defines you than anything on the baseball field. And I think that's because it probably speaks to the relationships you had before in your life, the relationships you have now. But how were you able to say, you know what? All right, I'm taking the cleats off. We're going on tour. Get the fucking roadies. We're going on tour. How do you take us through that conversation with the man in the mirror?
All right, so balls deep in music. We just gotta. Okay, that's wonderful. Yeah, for me, man, no, it's given me a true sense of freedom, Dallas. Like, I retired as a Nashville Sound. I was playing AAA. I just wanted to say, get me on a field somewhere. I just want to fall back in love with this game before I retire. Because I was a beat up little puppy after those 7 years in San Fran. I took a full season off. So I came back to Nashville, hooked up with a great guy that was involved with songwriting, and he was a manager, and started co-writing country music for a couple of years, man, and just having a great time. And again, but I could tell my identity wanted to attach, right? Now I'm looking at the other writers who's getting cuts. This guy got a #1 single. I've been writing with this guy, and now he's got a record deal, right? And so here we go. And it's that constant battle with the ego. Wait, what am I doing this for? Joy? Or am I doing this for validation? And I think that's the line, right? So now, dude, I'm having a great time. I'm jumping into the music production side. I got a studio, and I'm learning just how to rock all that stuff so I can get back to songwriting, but be able to create the entire soundscape. But I'm having a great time, man, because if I was led by my ego, I'd be on Music Row writing songs every day, trying to fight for cuts. And I'm not saying I won't be doing that at some point, but it took courage to step back and just go be a scientist in my studio and just start learning, for a couple years, which is what it's going to take me to do everything I want to do. And again, I think if we just ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Am I in joy right now, or am I miserable because I need validation?
Right. That was the 2015 season that you played for the Nashville Sounds, the AAA affiliate of the A's.
Yeah.
So that was, talk to me about that experience, because obviously you're talking about like the battle with the ego. You signed the 7-year deal, and it's at the time the largest contract ever given to a pitcher. And then you take the year off. You sign a minor league deal to kind of have, was it just, I want to have a send off with the A's, or was it, I want to go back to my roots? Like you talk about falling in love with baseball again. I mean, you have to really love it if you have all this money in the bank and you're still doing the bus rides down in AAA.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, for me, I took a full year off in 2014 after 14 years in the big leagues, because I just wanted to reset and remember why I started throwing that baseball. And it became so lopsided for me. And so now, no one sees me. I'm out of the game for a year, just throwing into a net at a park, in San Diego by myself. And so when I came back, I just wanted to go compete wherever. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up signing back with the A's. I was looking at multiple teams, but of course I wanted to go back, be in the green and gold again, and got to go to Nashville. Never been there. Always heard it was a music town. But now I'm playing like on pretty nice fields. There's fans in the crowd, I get to play with some great players coming up. A lot of the guys that are on the A's now were coming up when I was there. Yep. And, man, I'll tell you what, I really appreciated the way I was able to shoot up through the minors in a year coming up, because I realized, dude, there's a lot of dudes that get stuck in AAA, and it's not because they don't have the talent. There's all kind of stuff going on politically, right? Mm-hmm. And I just had this whole sense of gratitude, like, again, I don't even know how I pitched up in the big leagues, man. Mm-hmm. It's pretty hard. So I got to just completely fall back in love with baseball again and really have a healthy relationship with it. And as we know, how many guys still get those pings when they watched games on TV, because it reminds us of what we didn't do in the game. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard place to be. So I feel like if we can have peace and contentment on our way out, man, that's invaluable.
And you were a September call-up that year. And then you got kind of like a send-off game. Was it versus Hudson?
Yeah.
That's right.
It was. That's right. Yeah. And it's funny because I retired in Omaha, Nebraska in AAA, and Ryan Roberts, who used to play with the Arizona Diamondbacks, they used to call him the Tap Man, sweet guy. He was on my team in Nashville. He threw a surprise retirement party. I retired as a Nashville Sound, and 9 days later I get a call from Billy Beane saying, Z, how many bullets you got left in it? And I was like, Billy, you should have called me up in the summer. I was dealing this year, but like they didn't want to put me on the 40-man. But like, and he's like, well, we need some help, and there's some guys been down. So, I went back and pitched, but I'll tell you what, getting it going after 10 days of not throwing, and I did not pitch well, on that last run. But I'll tell you what, it was cool taking the field against Tim Hudson. Yeah. He had a Giants uni on. The whole team in Oakland had their socks up as a tribute to me and my, my aesthetic. It was magical. It was, man.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, that you get to have like that send off. Dallas, were you going to say something?
No, I just wanted to ask, everything that you've experienced on the baseball field and where you're at in life now, what is an experience, an encounter, a conversation, an individual that you didn't know it then, but you think about them damn near every day because of just that, a conversation, a moment that you might have shared in the baseball world that you feel impacting you almost on a daily basis, maybe today away from baseball. Maybe it's not every day, but maybe it's like, you know what? Shit, there we are again. I remember the bus ride in 2002 when so-and-so said this, and here it is today, ringing true.
Wow.
Is there anything like that for you?
That's good. Man.
Maybe a good stretch by Doc Thorson.
Midland, Texas. I think for me, man, it's probably a bigger moment and not a subtle one, but I think it was just, making the decision to, go for the huge contract and be the big rock star that I wanted to. And there was a part of me that knew that experience was going to teach me life lessons that I would take into the rest of my life. And it was going to be a lot bigger than just a contract in baseball. And so, I'm just grateful. I'm actually just grateful for all the struggle and the 2010 nightmare that I lived and all the pain. I mean, I'm grateful for all that because it ended up building up these muscles that I did not have. And now I get to take those into the rest of my life.
Last question we asked all of our guests. If you could go back in time to witness any moment in baseball history, what would it be?
Oh, man. Okay, so Don Larson threw a perfect game in the World Series. Mm-hmm. And I got some inside information from somebody that had known Don years ago that he actually went out and had a good time the night before in New York.
Oh.
I want to know what Don was doing that night and what time he got to bed, because we tend to think that people are their best when they're just a little fuzzy around the edges, little tired. Yeah. So I want to know what Don was doing that night.
I love that pick. I love that pick.
That's awesome.
That's a great pick.
That's a standalone.
That is. Barry Zito, thank you so much for coming on. The book is called Curveball. Obviously, pick that up as soon as you can. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thanks, fellas.